Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and today I'm joined by Wenses the DM. How are you doing today?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm doing good.
If you'd be so kind of introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name is Wences. I go as Wences the DM on YouTube and mainly over TikTok. Mainly just make funny skits, some campaign idea videos. Mainly known for on the platform as the Deck of Many Things guy, and and yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on. As always, folks, there are links down in the description. There's a beacon link that goes to all the places. You also do some streaming and some podcasting, and we're talking a bit beforehand. And so apparently you're like playing in a lot of games right now.
Yeah, so I run a Sunday game for my friends here in town. I also do a bi-weekly game over on my Discord for my community over there, as well as guest spotting on other people's Twitch games, live podcast games as well. So I'm kind of like bouncing around everywhere right now.
You're like an RPG nomad.
Yeah, which is I think is very ironic because I recently just started playing D&D a little over a year and a half ago, and a lot of people have this notion that I'm like this super informative person, and I'm like, no, I am just I'm right there with everyone. I just Google everything, and D&D Beyond's my best friend.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of people that have done that, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like Waz D20, when he started his channel, like he had just started playing D&D, and he's got a pretty big YouTube channel now. I think his channel's. I think he passed us a while ago. But there's nothing wrong with kind of like sharing your journey, into the
Yeah.
hobby with people. And we all have to start somewhere. Sometimes I think it's kind of refreshing for someone that's new coming in to meet someone else that's new coming in sharing their experiences.
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, I still make mistakes every single time I DM, and I've learned to just embrace it. I feel like I was like really hard on myself starting out, just because in my home group we have two other DMs who have been playing for years, and then me just bringing in a fresh take on everything because I'm rule of cool always. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that I let fly, and in their head they're like, should it though? It doesn't make sense. Like the way that I portray the gods and deities in my campaign is completely different how everyone else portrays them. Like my warlock hasn't been able to talk to the Raven Queen because she doesn't want to talk to someone who hasn't rose in the ranks at all.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's your game. You can run it however you want.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, also, like, I've been playing this game for like 30 years and still screw things up, mess things up. We always mess things up on the channel, mispronounce things, and like,
Yeah.
don't worry. There's, especially if you're doing something public facing, there's plenty of people to let you know.
Yeah.
Uh, there's no shortage for sure.
Oh yeah. You know how long it took me to pronounce thaumaturgy?
Yeah, thaumaturgy, prestidigitation, like all
Yep.
those words are, I don't know, the devil made those words.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
It was a pain.
We get a lot of flack for well, it's funny because on our channel, like, I'll mispronounce things, and then like I'm older than everybody else, so they might have like heard me say those words for the first time. So
Okay.
they learned them from listening to me mispronounce them. So unless they've gone back and like corrected themselves,
Yep.
you know, Kai instead of Key,
Oh yeah, that's a good
melee
one.
melee instead of melee. And then at a certain point, like, I'm kind of stubborn, so it just makes me dig in my heels and be like, "Oh, this really bothers you people, huh?" So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like we talked about it earlier, pre going live about my players making that wish to make all the gods immortal. And when I posted that video, it was like a split 50-50. Like, no, you can't do that. That doesn't make any sense. And then other people were asking, like, well, how did that affect everything? And
yeah.
yeah, that was a fun time navigating everything because that was the first video that actually blew up on my TikTok page, and it was hard to navigate, you know, did I do something good? Did I do something bad?
Yeah,
Allowing them to
yeah.
do that?
It's funny. And it probably blew up because all the people that wanted to tell you you're fun is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That I'm wrong or that I
hate
really,
hate drives things faster on social media than anything else.
yeah.
The dark
Like,
side is
hey,
strong.
Yep, sharing all of this, like, hey, look how wrong this guy is.
Yeah. What is your favorite kind of content to create?
um, I want to say it's like a split between the skits and then just like general ideas that
Yeah.
I don't really ever see. The biggest one that blew up on my channel was my campaign idea to session zero, have your players make their level 1 characters, and at the same time have them level that character to level 20. And first session in, have them right away just start fighting the big bad without answering any questions at all. Just let them go in blind and completely like just beat the crap out of them. Like, don't let them win at all. And if you
Yeah.
have big brain players who have this wombo combo that can deal massive damage and can over time eventually kill it, just have them all just wake up, and they're all individual beds, and they have to get together and figure out a plan on how to combat what just happened. And it was like a 50-50 split again, because a lot of the time we're like, well, that's kind of a waste of time. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's not meant for new players fresh starting out to make a level 20 characters, because that's a lot to ask and that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I mainly made that video as like a placeholder for myself, because I randomly had that idea and I'm like, this would be really fun with my group, because we crank out level 20 characters in like 15 minutes. We have our spells that we know are great. We know what to grab, what works well if we're multi-classing. So we crank them out super quick. And I mainly just uploaded it as like, this is a really good idea and I'm going to forget it later. So
Yeah.
we make this video as like a placeholder for later.
Sometimes it's just fun to do ridiculous things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned Gestalt games, and I remember back we were playing third edition, and we didn't have a whole lot of time, and our group was meeting less frequently. So I was just like, "Hey, I got an idea," and we did like a Gestalt game. And back then, like you could play things you couldn't normally play, but
Right.
you had something called ECL, which just added like imaginary levels to your character. So just because some monsters are stronger, so if you use them as a player character, and I was like, you're just gonna like fight things and take their stuff. It is going to be just straight up dungeon crawl. Not really going to have much of an ongoing story or plot. And it became such a Monty Hall campaign. They had
Yeah.
so much stuff. It was ridiculous. It was just, and sometimes it's just fun to do the ridiculous and less
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah. Like in our Gestalt campaign, at the end of it, when we wrapped up and had our beach day at the end, my HP was close to over 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Three of my stats were level, or three of my stats were 30. All my other stats were at minimum 17. So it was crazy amount of damage. And I know we talked a little bit about the background of my character and how all the Tiamat stuff, and I was able to use every single breath weapon that Tiamat had at that point.
Yeah.
So everything we fought was insanely strong. It was a lot of fun. We're actually planning to start a fresh campaign 2 to that one, or I think it's in a different setting but same concept. It's going to be a Gestalt campaign, and we went that route for the Twitch stream because we never really see Gestalt campaigns on Twitch ever. So we're like, well, it'd be something good and fresh to bring to D&D community to see, like, hey, you could play Gestalt in D&D, and it's pretty fun, especially starting out at, having 2 level 2 characters in 1 character.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty impressive that your GM is able to, run a coherent story and keep that interesting and challenging for that many levels. Because
Yeah.
at that point, it's like nothing's coming straight out of the box with
Yeah.
that, or things are so much more powerful than what you're supposed to be fighting.
Yeah. I'm very fortunate enough to have 2 DMs that are just lore. I would say lore masters at this point, because I can say someone's name or a god and deity's name and they can just spit everything out about them, or what level of the abyss they're in, what what area of the planes they're in, who they're aligned with. And it's refreshing for me, because even if my campaign I pop someone's name up, one of my other players who's not that knowledgeable asks something about them, and if I don't know, I kind of look at them, I'm like, hey, would they know that? And then they just dump it all.
No, that's great. when you have people in your campaign that can kind of help with that stuff, it definitely breaks things up.
Oh yeah.
And take some of the pressure and responsibility off the GM.
Yeah, we're pretty, we kind of like have this rule, like, whatever the DM says goes. But if we need help with rulings, anything that's lore related, we can always ask, and we're always there to help. We had I had just brought in my cousin in yesterday's game. He was fresh, never played. We're currently at level 10, multi-classing, just base D&D source book material. And I told him, I was like, do you want to play something that's not too hard to track, or you want to go all in? It's like, no, just give me the simplest thing. I was like, cool, barbarian fighter. I was like, you're just going to rage, reckless attack, extra attack, action surge if you need to. And yeah, it was like a really good and refreshing session, because everyone as a collective was like helping just him.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, we have our wombo combos already. Let's help you figure out your one wombo combo that you have. And yeah, he went totem warrior bear. So he's resistant to all damage except psychic. So that was fun, because everything I hit him with just took half. And then if he saved on something, he took half of a half.
Yeah, Robert wants to know, just got here, what's the Gestalt campaign session?
So again, me being not that knowledgeable, from my understanding, Gestalt is something that we kind of ported over from Pathfinder. It's in a nutshell, playing two characters in one body. So with D&D, if you multi-class, your overall level has to cap out at level 20. So you can take 10 levels in cleric, 10 levels in fighter, but your overall level will be 20, and you can't go higher than that. With Gestalt, you can be a level 20 fighter and a level 20 monk, but your overall level will be level 20, not 40, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
So
I think it first appeared in third edition as an optional rule. Like, I
gotcha.
don't remember even where I saw. And I mean, Pathfinder really is just like the extension of third edition anyway.
Yeah.
But you're playing two character classes at the same time. So if you start from level 1, you could be a cleric mage or a cleric fighter or rogue fighter or whatever. And every time you gain a level in each of those. Although I don't think anyone does any multi-classing when you do that, because it's already ridiculous enough.
Yeah. it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Um, like for example, my Gestalt character was a war cleric, way of the Kensei monk, and with Gestalt, I was hitting on average between 90 to 120 on just my first attack.
Yeah.
I still have extra attack, action surge, or not action surge, extra attack, and then flurry of blows, and all these key points that do all this stuff. And if I miss, I have channel divinities for that. And it was like super well thought out.
And I also generally in like previous editions, if there's specific numbers that were better for one class over the other, you just use the better numbers, right? But
Yeah.
you guys didn't use both hit dice, you just used the highest.
No, we just used the highest. And
Yeah.
then same thing with stats. We just averaged it out. We didn't, took both stats and combined them into one.
And then like, did you just take all the good saves from both classes?
Yeah. So we had the option to either average it out or just take the highest number, which everyone took the highest number.
Yeah.
No one's going to take the average unless it's terribly, on average. But yeah, for the most part, I think everyone just took the highest number, either hit points for stats. The thing where it got tricky was damage output, kind of trying to average out and take the highest number with that. So it was a lot of working with the DM on my end, trying to figure out if everything was correct before we went in.
And it might mean a little bit different depending on whose game you're playing in. Like, you might per table might be tweaked a little, but essentially it's basically playing two character classes at the same time is like the simplest explanation.
Yeah, what really sold me on having that be my first experience was like, well, you get to play two max level characters in one, sold.
Yeah. And you guys went crazy because you're just like, we're going to do it from level 20. The campaign
Yeah,
that I ran, I don't remember what level they started at. It might have been like between 5th and 7th. And then we were
gotcha.
leveling up from there.
Yeah, because when starting out, my friends have always played D&D back in high school, and
Mm,
I always got invited to. They were running a Wednesday game at the time, and we've always been big nerds, either playing Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, some form of card game at that time. And I was like, I don't know if I can get into D&D, like 3 4 hour games. Like, I don't know if I can swing that.
so what got you into it? Because clearly, like, it's been a you've been exposed to it for a long time, and
Right.
just more recently, you said you started playing.
Yeah. So what really got me into it is kind of my friends always asking me to play. And when the pandemic hit, I had lost my job and I had just amounts of time on my hands. And I was like, I think it's like kind of the best time to kind of check it out. So I searched up Dungeons and Dragons on YouTube. And the first thing that popped up was Critical Role. And I was like, well, I don't know it was like campaign 2, like episode 100 and something. No, I have no idea what was going on. I just clicked on it and they were just like already in combat. And I don't know, it really captivated me, honestly. Like, it kind of took me for like a surprise. Like, I didn't know Dungeons and Dragons can be like that immersive and that in
Yeah,
depth. And then to add on top of that, like, uh, once I kind of like researched the people who were playing it from Critical Role, I was like, oh, that's the voice of McCree, or whatever they changed his name to now. I forgot. And that's the voice of Ellie from Last of Us. And Travis is the voice of Thor. And it's kind of like, oh man, I didn't even know voice actors played this.
yeah.
And then I just got lost in the sauce of Critical Role pretty much. And uh, I feel like it was a good outlet, because then that led me to Dimension 20, and then it led me to watching D&D Beyond's Twitch streams and live streams as well. And I just like bounced around from everywhere. And even with you guys at Nerdarchy, I started watching you guys like very early on. And same with Gallant Goblin and a few other YouTubers. And it just like, I just soaked it all in pretty much. And I was definitely hit with the quote unquote Matt Mercer effect. I thought that like I had to be this DM.
Hobby is there's a ton of ways to enjoy it,
Yeah.
and none are particularly right or wrong. It's just kind of different.
Yeah. Like, I found my own style that's I found out very fast that it is highly unorthodox, because the way that I prep my campaigns is I don't. I have bullet points of what's going to happen, like places of interest, NPCs that they can possibly talk to on the route that they're going. But my story is very player driven. So wherever they want to explore, where they want to go, they have a big bad. They have smaller, I would say, quote unquote, big bads as well that they can kind of take out on the way. But there's a lot of problems in the world, and my players tend to go, well, we need to go to the main problem, but what if we went over here?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of led me to just kind of going no prep, because I do prep in a sense. I have my bullet points and where they're going to go and such, and I have stuff planned. But as far as planning from start to end game, start to mid game, I don't do that.
I would say like me and Ted are a lot like that in how we make our games too. It's not how I don't think it's how we started, but it's
Yeah,
where we ended up.
same.
Just because like used to be super heavy prep, and then like as time went on, and a couple things would happen. Like one, like your players would be like, yeah, I see this adventure you wrote over here, but we're not doing that. And there's that, and then also like so many times I write material and don't even use but a third of it, right? Or you run out real fast because they did things you weren't expecting. Or
Yep.
you just get short for time one week and you're like, well, I either run with nothing prepared or we don't play. And I'm just like, I
Yeah.
guess we'll wing it. And it works out okay. And then you look back and you're like, well, what did I do all that work for?
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that's like on the nose of what exactly happened was
yeah.
starting my campaign. It was Dragon of Icespire Peak, and I prepped like that week like a solid 7-8 hours, and started the session. They went left, and I had nothing for it. I
Yeah.
kind of just winged it, and it worked.
Mm,
And
mm.
I kind of just followed suit with that because my whole train of thought was, okay, we'll go Dragon of Icespire Peak. I had watched I forgot what their name was on YouTube, but they had a good, I want to say like a session 0 for Icewind Dale that took place starting at the end of Dragon of Icespire Peak. And I had just got Icewind Dale for Christmas that year. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this could be like a perfect port over to take them into a higher level after Dragon of Icespire Peak.
It's
And
not the game Ted's in, is it?
I don't believe so.
I just know because Jake from Mini Domain Terrain, I know he chops up the adventures all which way, and like they run through every one, but clearly they couldn't possibly run through everything and do as many of the adventures as they do.
I think the YouTuber that I got it from was Bob World Builder, I
Oh,
believe.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, I believe because he did Dragon of Ice Rare Peak, and then he talked about Icewind Dale at the end of his like last wrap up video. And I was like, oh, that's actually a really good idea. So I put it on my Christmas list. Me and my wife share Christmas lists, and she bought
yeah.
me that one. And I was okay, cool. I have like the good out to port them over that one, so we can keep the campaign going if they run through it pretty fast.
You know what comment
And
we've received about him a bunch of times?
what's
They
that?
call him they call him Ted's long lost son.
Oh man.
Which I thought was hilarious. We've had him on the chat with. He's got some good content over there.
That's awesome, man.
So Brian wants to know: are there spells or abilities you never take or use? The optimization mindset can lead to players just never exploring portions of the game.
Yes. I never use Mage Hand ever. Same with Thaumaturgy and Knock. I always take it because in hindsight, these are really great spells,
Yeah.
and I just never use them. And I rarely play a caster. I usually play a monk or play a barbarian, a paladin, and there's one of these days, like even a bard. I really want to play a bard, but all my friends are, well, they're not going to admit it, but they're min maxers.
Yeah.
They're not going to admit it, but I'll
Listen,
admit
you
it
guys
for them.
start. You kicked off your D&D career with like a stalk campaign. Kind of
Yeah,
says it all.
yeah, yeah. So they're definitely min maxers, and my chain of thought is, well, if I go bard, I'm gonna have to be sitting in the background, and if I get hit in their campaigns, I will die.
Yeah.
So one of these days, I'm definitely gonna play a bard, but I do want to explore bard heavily because Vicious Mockery is amazing, and definitely gonna play bard pretty soon. But yeah, usually because I want to maximize characters, I usually just like, oh, okay, cool. I have 2 more spells I can pick. I guess I'll take Mage Hand, and I guess I'll take Knock, or I'll take Blur and never use it.
Yeah. I mean, concentration spells are always hard anyway to figure out which ones to concentrate on and not.
Yeah. Usually it's just for me cast Spirit Guardians and then just punch.
I only use Mage Hand, but inappropriately.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the way that I would see. Like if I ever use Mage Hand, it's gonna be for something dumb. It's never gonna be for its purpose.
Yeah. Well, I think Acquisitions Inc. I've only watched like a couple of those episodes, and probably never a full one. But they had a Mage Hand arm wrestling competition in the one, and I was like,
My God.
this is the greatest thing ever. I think they're like making athletics checks with their intelligence in order
That
to
is
see who won
amazing.
the Mage Hand arm wrestling.
That's so creative.
Yeah.
Man.
That's why they're Acquisitions Inc.
Oh yeah.
Perkins. He's like they're the OG like D&D streamers. Like they're the original Patient
Nice.
Zero, I think.
I think what I had just did my last session was I was supposed to give my players a beach day, but had two of my players that are in character arguing with each other, and they were going to fight to the death. So after that happened, I made this casino that is running off of the essence of the patron. So when you walk in, you have to make a wisdom saving throw, and if the DC is set at 18, if you fail it, the DC goes up by 1. And behind the screen, I'm rolling a D6, and whatever it's landing on, it's going to minus whatever stat that is permanently. So, and if you fail it, you have the urge to keep playing. Like there, and my players, just two of my players, or one of my players, everyone else passed, and he just kept failing it, and he didn't know what was going on because I wasn't saying anything. I was like, nope, you fail. You just keep wanting to play. You keep betting gold. And after he finally saved, I told him, okay, well, your charisma is permanently dropped by 1 and your intelligence is permanently dropped by 1. And he was like, wait, who runs this place?
Oh no, he went full Karen.
Yeah. He was like, wait, who runs this place?
I need to speak to the manager.
He's like, I didn't sign up for this. Who runs this place? I need to know now. And what's funny is I have it to where their Patreons, along with some other gods and deities, created the place as like a revenue-based place that they could keep revenue coming in. So when he found out, like, oh, your patron owns this place, he's like, I'm gonna call him. He needs to fix me.
Oh yeah, we have a product that has a casino in it. Slot machine mimics. That's all I got to say.
Oh. I didn't go the mimic route. I should have went the mimic route.
Also, there's like part of it is there's plants spread out throughout the casino that lowers people's inhibitions, kind of like what you're talking about. to keep them there doing the thing.
Yep.
I mean, it's like the modern day casinos, right? What do they claim that they pump them full of oxygen so people will stay awake and gambling?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you have like an actual like payout system, or you were just like having them just feed money into it?
Well, so it's based on an adventure. Like there's actually like an objective in the casino.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't like there's gambling games in there and stuff, but that wasn't like the premise of the product. It was more like the backdrop.
Gotcha. See, like for me, my backup plan was like, well, what if they actually willingly want to play? Because my players will do that.
Oh, so yeah, that's a given. Like you don't even need saving throws or anything like that. If you give your players a chance to gamble, they will 9 out of 10 times take it.
Yeah. So like I had made this payout system. So like the slot machines were 46. If you land on all 6s, you hit the jackpot. Mm-hmm. And if you're betting a gold, there's different payout rates. And we had this my cousin of mine found these poker dice. They pretty much have like 9, 10, jack, queen, king, and ace. And you play with five dice. You roll. It's like playing 5-card poker in a sense. You roll them once, keep what you want, re-roll the other ones you don't want, and then you stick with that hand, and whoever has the best hand wins pretty much. So I had that game in there.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And then I had a D100 roulette table.
Yeah, I've definitely made up some games on the spot, and then we've also put some games into some different products that we have as well for people to play. Do you prefer being the player or being a GM?
I feel like I'm like 60-40 on it. I'm like 60% like being the DM, but 40% of me really likes to play. I think for me, I'm very role play over combat. So like I care more about the story and backstories and such. Like generally when I start out a campaign, I usually ask everyone for their backstories and ask them to leave names out completely and let me fill that in for them. So that way I can input NPCs that I had in mind, or maybe some important people that they would know from their backstory down the line. So it kind of gives them that opportunity to shine and that opportunity to immerse them a little bit more. And I mean, not to shy away from combat, but I do have like massive amounts of combat in my campaigns, but majority of the time it'll be like 2 sessions of just role playing, world building lore, and then one big fight. and then 2 more sessions of role play building. And but I also do like playing, especially if I have like a specific character in mind or character build that I've been wanting to try that I don't want to use as an NPC. In that case, I do like playing. Like I said before, when we first started, I've been playing in a lot of other people's Twitch streams or one shots, and yeah, I'm really starting to like playing a little bit more now.
Have you had a chance to branch out to other games yet?
I have not. What we have I want to say like 8 PDFs right now, all on our like shared Google Doc. We have Call of Cthulhu, the Cipher System, Tales from the Loop. I believe it's Mastermind, Worldwide Wrestling, even, and Pathfinder, and a few other games that we've actively talked about playing, but we always start a new campaign or we bring someone new in, and it's always bouncing around. We're supposed to be doing a one shot of the Cipher System pretty soon that my buddy studied on and is going to DM. And every time we get together for our Sunday games, at the end of it, we're like, yeah, we'll do like character creation for the Cipher System. And it's always like a 4.5 hour session, and everyone's like already beat. Yeah, we'll do it next week. But yeah, like I do want to play in a lot of games, and I'm kind of just like waiting for like open invitations to play other games, because I know some other TikTok creators like branch out and play different games on stream and whatnot. So hopefully I'll get an invite one day.
I'm sure you will. So you haven't made it to Beggar Talk yet.
I've had like a little dip in it, because when I found out about Worldwide Wrestling, I was like, there's a role playing game and I could be a wrestler.
Yeah.
Like, this is my calling. So I had made a video on it, was like, is anyone playing this? If I could jump in anyone's game and like experiment. And then I had like that taste of like Beggar Talking a bit.
Yeah, we've done one campaign of Cipher System on the channel so far. Well, that's not entirely true. On the live channel, we've done one, and then we did another one on on the main channel. Back in the day, we wanted to play Shadowrun, but no one actually wanted to use the Shadowrun rules. So the GM made a hack for Shadowrun using Cipher System. And then like I ran a campaign called Moon Rising or Moon Rises, and that was like inspired by the old like Flash Gordon cartoon and Thundar the Barbarian, things that I feel like are probably well before your time. Gotcha. And a dash of the year 2020 in there as well.
Gotcha.
And so Thunder the Barbarians is like this fantasy sci-fi post-apocalyptic world where the world ends in the year 2020 in the cartoon. Nice. And it's a cartoon from like, I don't know, the 70s or 80s. I think it was early 80s.
Gotcha.
And then we're about to do a Supers game.
That's one other system I want to try out too, is Supers. That looks really fun.
Well, there's a few of them, but we're gonna do a game with using the Cipher rules.
Gotcha.
So we'll try that out. Like they have special rules for that. For playing Supers. But Mutants and Masterminds is a good Supers game that I've played. The old Marvel Phase Rip RPG is a lot of fun. I think is still a good system, even though it's like they've had several versions since then.
Gotcha. Like I just pulled up our Google Doc, and we have Mutant Mastermind, Cyborium, Lancer, Mothership, Cyberpunk, Call of Cthulhu, Worldwide Wrestling, Pathfinder, Cipher System. That's all we've got so far. It's all these games that we've like accumulated. We're like, yeah, we'll try these at some point.
So Mutants and Masterminds is kind of easy if you're used to D20. Gotcha. Except for it's like more based off of like the 3rd edition and Pathfinder rule set. So there's a lot of like pluses, bonuses and stuff that you add in there. But the character creation for that is a lot. It's a point buy, and depending on at what level you're playing, I used to use a program called Hero Lab that just made it super easy, where you're just like clicking, it does all the math, But without that, I, I think it would be a nightmare.
Yeah, I bet. Oh man.
But
Yeah, eventually I got to try one of those games. It's gonna happen. And even as well, like for me, like I didn't know about. I don't know why I didn't know about other systems when I did all this stuff, but I had started writing my second campaign, which is uh based on like the Last of Us game. If you ever played the Last of Us, so like post-apocalyptic, worldwide infection, that type of thing. And it's all modern day weaponry, no magic and whatnot. And when I was writing the story and making the maps, and I'm pretty much homebrewing all the classes because
yeah,
I didn't even think to look at other systems. I don't
it
know
would be so
why
much
it's
less work for you
so much easier.
if you're like so. Cipher System actually has New Monera, which is kind of post-apocalyptic, but it's got like fantasy elements in it.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's probably tons
it's
of
so
systems
mad.
that would be far easier than making your
Yeah,
basically a whole game
so
out of
mad.
the D20.
Yeah, I was so mad because I made even like the weapons, all the rifles, pistols, bow and arrows. I could have just got that all from Lancer or the cyber system.
Yeah,
And yeah,
live
I
and learn. Powered by
made all the
Apocalypse is
stat
really
blocks and
good
everything
too.
too.
It's a really easy system to get into.
Yeah. It's like all of these systems that I found out about after I finished writing all the homebrewed classes, all the
Yeah.
weapons, all the feats. And then that's when a buddy of mine had started buying all these PDFs for all these games. And he's like, you could have just looked at this one. It has all these weapons. This one has a scavenging system, so you don't have to make one yourself. I'm just like, God, you could have saved me months of research and work.
there's yeah, well that's the thing, like when you like it's funny because most people start playing games with D&D, but
Yeah.
most games are much easier to learn than D&D.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is like you finally learn D&D. It was probably overwhelming at first, and then you're kind of like, ugh, the idea of learning another system is so much inertia to overcome.
I think like for me, I think I caught on to D&D like fairly easy. I think the only thing that really intimidated me at first was character creation, and then finally looking at the character sheet and then like being like,
Yeah.
what do all these numbers do?
Well, you also
But
jumped in the deep end, right? You started at a
yeah,
much higher level and a
level
Gestalt play campaign.
I started at level 15 Gestalt, so I had to
Mhm.
manage two level 15 characters. And it was a steep learning curve, but after I think like our second big encounter, I kind of got the hang of it. I kind of started figuring out, what dice to roll correctly and what spells work well with each other, and remembering, oh yeah, if I hit, I should dump key points, and
Yeah.
starting strike, and all this other stuff. And I don't regret learning at that high curve.
Yeah.
Because I felt like it really fast tracked me to D&D, having
Yeah.
to manage all that stuff and not having to start from level one and work my way up. Um, I highly suggest starting low if you're starting new. Don't jump into level 15. Luckily, I had two really good DMs that were walked me through a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Like my wife started playing and we started with D&D and she's now in a couple of our groups and like the one group we switch off the game we're going to play. And she was really nervous and I'm like, we started you with the hard game, like it's more than likely anything we play from here is going to be easier than D&D.
Right.
So far in that group we played The Expanse, Monster of the Week, and I think we're getting ready to start Shadow of the Demon Lord, which I haven't played yet. So kind of
Nice.
excited to check that out.
Yeah, like for my wife, when I started working with Hit Point Press, they had sent me over there a few of their Humblewood books to kind of give away on my channel,
Yeah.
and uh, I like opened one and I flipped through it, and I was like, oh, this is adorable. I showed my wife. She's like, wait, I can be a pigeon. I'm like, yeah, you can be a pigeon. You could be a raccoon. You could be a rooster. You can
Yeah.
be all these animals. And I'm like, kind of planning a Humblewood setting for like my wife and like a few of their friends and their wives as well, because it's super cuddly animals, but it's
Yeah.
D&D.
But it's D&D. Yeah, absolutely.
Had to find the loophole.
Well, I mean, when it comes to RPGs, like there is definitely a game for everybody.
Oh yeah,
It's just a
definitely.
matter of figuring out, what that is and what people want to play. Combination of, the complexity and genres. I find like the older I get, the more I want to play rules light games,
Yeah,
uh, and things that I can just learn. Like both Cipher System and Monster of the Week were like super easy, and especially Monster of the Week was like once you cut out like all the player stuff, I'm like, I don't really need to know this stuff. The players can deal with this, and just the
yeah,
rules. There's not that much to the game, and it's just like 2d6. That's it.
yeah. And like I always thought that it was kind of funny that my wife, like, it's taking her forever to play D&D, but like we
Yeah,
would play a lot of board games, like a lot of like murder mystery, trying to figure out who the murderer is. And I'm like, this is kind of like D&D. Every time I get a chance to hit her with that, I take that opportunity. Even like playing Dice Throne, it's like PvP. I'm like, rolling all this dice, trying
yeah.
to figure out what attack works best. You know what that's kind of like? It's kind of like D&D.
They keep working it. You gotta be
I gotta
careful
keep
though. Like
working the angles.
you don't want to push too hard because then they're just
No,
like dig in
yeah,
their heels and be like, no.
yeah.
Uh, do you like or have you played House on the Hill Betrayer?
No, I really want to play that game. That game looks really fun, and every time like we pass through it, like at Target, because we almost always go by the board game session and see if there's any new stuff out.
Uh,
And every time you pass it by and it's on sale, I'm like, we could play with two people. But she's like, no, it looks pretty long. So we watched
it
I
is
say
long.
yeah, I think we watched Geek and Sundry play it, I think is who we watched play like
Yeah.
one go of it. And once she saw that it was like an hour and something long, she was like, I don't think I want to play it.
I generally don't like long tabletop games. I'm like, if this is gonna take 2 hours, I might as well just be playing an RPG. But
Yeah,
that is one of the games I make an exception for. It's just, I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's different every time.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, what's funny too is Dice Throne is like a very PvP dice rolling game,
yeah.
but they I want to say last November, they did a Kickstarter for their adventures game, and it's pretty much a D&D campaign. Like you're just playing with the Dice Throne champions, but you're
Uh,
going through dungeons, fighting bosses, collecting loot, and there's a story behind it. And
yeah.
someone has to be the quote unquote dungeon master for that game too. So I showed my wife it, and she was like really excited for it because she really likes Dice Throne because it's super simple. It's like a card game and dice game in one. And she was like, "Yeah, I'd be down to play adventures." And I'm like, that there's like 8 dungeons and like each one is like an hour long, right? She's like, "Oh yeah, that's fine." And I'm like, "But if you play D&D, it's the same thing."
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, maybe like having a board and things in front of you
yeah,
makes it more real for some people.
yeah. I think what I'm actively going to try to write is a Willy Wonka one shot because that's like her thing. She loves Willy Wonka. When they came out with that Willy Wonka golden ticket board game,
Uh,
oh my god, we played that thing maybe like 13, 14 times.
nice.
It's really fun. I mean, you just hop around the board, get little candy bars, and then open the candy bar. It has a gold ticket in it. You win pretty much. So when I seen how much she really liked playing that, I'm like, what if Willy Wonka was in D&D? So I've got to figure out something. Got to make Slugworth the good big bad,
Nice.
which at the end of it is really Willy Wonka.
It sounds like it could be fun. I mean, definitely, like if you want to run like a trippy kind of far out D&D
Yeah,
session, going through the candy factory, it is like a dungeon, right? The
pretty
way it's
much.
set
Yeah,
up, the way they move through it. I feel like,
exactly.
that Willy Wonka the Dungeon Crawl would be great.
Yep, a lot of mimics.
All the mimics.
All the mimics.
And Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, the chocolate eats you.
Exactly. That's a good selling point. I need to write that down.
Yeah.
Put that
Do
on a
you like
t-shirt.
deck builders?
I do. I'm really fond of deck builders.
So
Like I
if you
played.
like deck builders, you should try Quarriers, which is a dice pool game where you build a instead of building a deck, you build a dice pool. So
Okay.
like it's one of my favorite games. You basically have like you have the area that's called the wilds, and that's where you buy your stuff from. And you've got 3 spells and 4 monsters, and they each have like a dice that represents them. So you
Gotcha.
start off the game trying to acquire the better dice to put into your bag and trying to get rid of your starter dice so you get to use the better ones more often. Uh and and then people get to bring out spells and monsters to use against each other.
Gotcha.
It's a
Yeah,
lot of
like
fun.
one that I was just looking at recently. There's this person on TikTok that I follow, and she plays like heavy board games and always does like reviews and recommendations. And she had just did a video on games to play with your significant other.
Mm.
If you like PvP style stuff or like adventure co-op games. And one of them was Too Many Bones. That game looks really, really fun. It's a lot
I
of
have not
dice.
seen that.
Yeah, Too Many Bones. It's kind of the same thing. Like you have like a character and you go throughout the story. You level up your character, and they have different dice that you can draft to your character that do different damage or different effects. There's a tank, there's a healer, there's a ranger, and it's kind of just like a dice pool game as well. And there's just a lot of dice involved. That's what kind of sold me. We both like me and my wife love rolling dice.
Yeah.
So like, oh yeah, that could probably work. And
Who doesn't?
as right. Yeah, but Corey's, I definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Smash Ups is probably one of my like all-time favorites as far as
Have
just
you
like
played Boss Monster?
I feel like I've played it like once.
It's kind of like you build your dungeon and trying to keep adventurers out, and you're going up against other people with their dungeons, and they can
And they're set
play
up like
cards.
side scroller games almost,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I'm not I'm not sure if I played that or if there was another one with Abraham Lincoln that is very similar with the same kind of like art and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I've been trying to get my wife to play that one because my friends played a lot. There's like a lot of boosters and expansions for it,
Yeah.
and it's just pretty much trying to outlast everyone else, pretty much. And it's like pixel like old Super Mario games, pretty much.
It's like become its own genre of tabletop games at this point.
Yeah,
All the pixel art and stuff. I tend to like things that have like that play fast. I'd rather like play the same game a bunch of times than play one game like for a long time.
yeah.
That's why I gravitate towards things like Smash Up, I think. And also I just like ridiculous combinations.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like my strategy is with my decks has nothing to do with what works together well or what's good. It's just like, can I play Space Fairies or dinosaur robots?
Yeah, I think I would gravitate to the same thing. The more outlandish, the better.
Yeah, pirate ninjas.
Oh yeah,
So it's all
definitely.
about making ridiculous combinations and combinations that sound ridiculous, or you know, uh, kitten pirates or something weird. They've got so many versions of that game now.
Oh man,
I don't know if you've played that one or not.
I haven't. No,
Oh, you're
but it's
missing.
another one I definitely got to check out.
You're missing out. Like so like I'm like a filthy casual when it comes to board games and tabletop games, but
Gotcha.
Ted used to do monthly game nights, and that used to be cool because we'd have like there would be like 5 or 6 games going on in different places of the house at the same time, and people would show up and bring their own games. Ted's got like as many games as a game store, so it kind of works out.
Yeah,
Pretty
like
good.
what we've been doing lately is having like kind of like a dice throw night, because you can play King of the Hill style. So
Okay.
we would have like 7 people or 8 people, and we would just go around, kind of like playing Commander and Magic the Gathering. You can pretty much hit whoever you want, and there's a lot of politics. Like, don't hit me this turn, and I'll let you live, or I'll do this for you on that turn.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. Should definitely check out Dice Turn if you haven't. It's pretty fun, and the wide range of characters you can pick from. There's paladin, barbarians, shadow thieves. There's a monk. There's a pyromancer, and they just got the licensing for Marvel, so now they're having all the Marvel characters as well in that little universe.
Nice. So you mentioned being, a Magic the Gathering fan, player. What do you think of all the Magic the Gathering additions to D&D?
I personally haven't looked too much into like the previous Magic the Gathering settings, but like for Strixhaven, I was actively playing when that set came out in Magic first, and I really liked all that stuff: the Prismari, the Command, the Quandrix, the
Yeah.
Campuses, all that lore behind those cards. And then when they ported it over to D&D, I was like super excited because in my campaign, like the protector of the weave runs the school of magic, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. There's a
Yeah.
campus and there's colleges around it, and I was already super familiar with the Prismari command and how they kind of operate in the lore of Magic the Gathering. So I was like, oh, this is perfect, because the Prismari command would technically be helping him.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
if you take Strixhaven and mash it up with Candlekeep,
Oh
like you
yeah.
have like a
Oh
huge
that.
academia in your game to draw from. They
Yeah,
both
definitely.
provide tons of like NPCs and useful things to just like drop in your game.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like I like how what Strixhaven is doing as well. Like, if depending on like what clubs you're in or what college you're from, get all these little bonuses to certain skills and certain stats. That's really cool.
Yeah. So for me, like I really enjoy the Magic the Gathering stuff because I was never really into Magic the Gathering.
Right.
So like it's actually new stuff in D&D to me compared
Right.
to like them regurgitating the third iteration of a setting that they've always had.
Yeah. But see, this is what I don't like about Wizards of the Coast. They roped me into Magic the Gathering because I always had friends who played Magic. Like my Sunday group always played Magic, but I never played Magic. I just stuck to Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and
uh,
Dragon Ball Z. I never wanted to play Magic because it looked more complicated. And it technically is the most complicated game that I actively play. And I never touched it. But then they come out with a Dungeons and Dragons set for Magic the Gathering, and I was like, well, now I got to start playing.
they
They
roped you
roped
back
me
in.
in. Yep, they roped me in, and then it was like kind of pseudo, because then Strixhaven comes out for D&D, and I'm like, now I got to buy the book.
Yeah, I think that was the plan all along.
Yeah, because I think
It wasn't very
Magic.
subtle at all.
Oh yeah, I think for what I had read on the Magic the Gathering side is there should be 2 more Dungeons and Dragons sets for Magic the Gathering in 2022, and there should be at least 1 more Magic the Gathering setting in D&D within 2022.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, it's kind of a no brainer. It's like, we've got all
Yeah.
this lore already. We have a ton of art already.
Yep.
Even though I know they do make a bunch of new art, but they still have, like, they can mix in the new and the old. And,
Yeah.
me personally, I wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What is there anything in particular you're looking forward to?
um Out of the Strixhaven book, or just in general?
Just in general.
Um Not that I can think of on the top of my head. I know Strixhaven recently just came out, so I'm planning to purchase it on Beyond and do like a deep dive sometime this week. But I'm not really sure if I'm looking forward to anything. I think a lot of the time where stuff gets announced or new books are coming out. Like I think the most recent thing that I was super excited about and looking forward to was Fizz Bands.
Yeah.
Just because I'm a big Dragonborn player, and I was when they came out with different Dragonborns, and
They made them not suck anymore.
yeah, they made them not suck anymore, and they gave them you can be a Drake Warden Ranger and ride on a Drake like and shoot bows and shoot arrows, and the infusion strikes were amazing. And we played a bit with the Unearthed Arcana stuff. We use it fairly often. We started using Unearthed Arcana in our games back when they did it for Ravenloft, when the Dampire and the
Reborn
Lineage
and
Reborn Lineage stuff came out. We messed a little bit around with that. In my campaign, my player's patron at the time was this kind of like vampire queen who's like hiding out in the Raven Queen's backyard trying to gain power back, and he was her sole champion. So when Unearthed Arcana stuff came out, he was like, dude, there's going to be vampires in D&D now. I was like, well, there's always been vampires. There's a lot of homebrew floating around. I was like, but there's actually going to be source book stuff. I was like, yeah, we can pull from that and take stuff from that. And what messed me up for a while was spider climb, because he spider climbed everywhere.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, I'm going to check for traps. And he rolled really low. And he's like, I'm going to spider walk. And I'm just like, well played.
Well, honestly, I like my favorite wild shape is the giant spider.
Oh yeah.
For that reason, that
spider walking everywhere.
I feel like it's the beast form that gets overlooked. Not only do you get spider climb, but also their web attack when you hit with it. Yeah. Like especially if you're fighting one monster. Like if nothing, worst case scenarios, they have to spend their round to break out of the webbing.
Yeah.
And you can gonna just hang back and throw webs. It's not
be a pseudo Spider-Man, pretty much.
Oh
man,
I was playing in a was it a stream game? I think it was a stream game. I was playing a Warforged Circle of the Moon Druid, and I was just like, can I just look like a robot animal when I turn into it?
Right, because that's we had to get creative with the stuff that you're shaping it.
Total like Beast Wars style. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you remember that or if that's before your time too.
I remember watching it a little bit, like very vaguely.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? They had a new one, the new Transformers on Netflix. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Miniseries, and towards the end of that, they got into the Beast Wars stuff, which was pretty decent.
Do you pull like any stuff from like pop culture or like any? And I'm not sure if you watch like any animation stuff, but do you like plug any of that stuff into your campaigns?
I'm a big fan of stealing from anything and everything, but like when I was running a Mutants and Masterminds game, like that's all I did was just use pop culture stuff for my games. And this is like years and years ago. So like I did a session where it was Michael Jackson's chimpanzee would escape every once in a while, but something had happened to it, so occasionally it would grow to be like King Kong. And so Bubbles would always escape and then try and reenact Bubbles' favorite movie, King Kong, and steal a woman to take to the top of the building as a joke. And then the players like have to figure out how to get the person and how to like diffuse the situation without actually hurting Bubbles. That's awesome. As that game had gone on, this was way before he became a political figure, but I had planned on using Donald Trump and having his hair be a symbiote that was controlling him.
Oh man.
Yeah, so yeah, I love using anything like that. There's tons of stuff that made its way into our games.
Oh yeah, that like a lot of us watch a lot of anime.
Yeah,
and a lot of the stuff that happens in anime is like ridiculously over the top to the point where I'm like, what if that was in D&D? The most recent one that I had kind of made a feat. there's this anime called Jujutsu Kaisen, and there's a character in there that has this ability. When he claps his hands, he can swap places with either the enemy or one of his friends. And when I seen that happen, I was like, that would be kind of like kind of ridiculous at D&D.
I think
And
that's a Strixhaven spell.
it is now, yeah.
Yeah.
It is now. I think it's like a creature within 30 feet. And you can kind of swap places and have them
something warp, vortex warp or something.
Yeah. Before all that happened, I made a defeat, and they used it so perfectly. They were fighting I think it was a frost giant skeleton, and my warlock would go up when he would Eldritch Blast, go up, take a swing. He would look back at at one of the players, and he would swap places with them and have them take it as a reaction. And it was just like a running joke because he would always do it.
Yeah.
Because I had written it like if they were willing, you can swap. If they were unwilling, they had to make a save, and they would always fail the save and always take the hit.
Nice. So we are just past the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
Not anything I could think of. I just want to say thank you again for having me on. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, that's all I have.
Thanks for chatting with me. As always, folks, links are in the description. Go check Wenses out throughout the interwebs and stalk them in the good way, not the creepy way. And until next time, stay nerdy.